Sir, is that okay?
Yes, that's okay. Alright, so group number one, Jakia and Darren, you guys can go ahead.
Okay, good morning everyone. We're group number one and we were tasked with doing exercise one, number 1 to 5. So number one, type the following data into sheet one.
So we were instructed to type the data into sheet one. So I started inputting the information that we were given in the quiz from column A straight to column F.
Okay, number two, merge the heading containing the title donations collected across columns A to B.
We then selected column A and B and clicked merge and center so we can get the title donations collected across them.
Then number three, double click on sheet one. You find this on the tab at the bottom left and rename it as main.
Here is a tab on the bottom left. So we double clicked on it and renamed it as main.
Good. One.
Number four,
Alright, go ahead, go ahead. I'll have a question later.
okay, sir. Number four, highlight the headings in row three and make them bold.
So we drag the cursor across row 3 and selected the bold option to make them bold.
And last but not least, number five, or question five, save the spreadsheet as donations.
To save the spreadsheet, I went into File, Save As, and then named it as donations, and then save it.
That is the end of our exercise.
Alright, don't stop presenting. Um, so anyone with any questions? If you didn't understand something and you want to understand it now, you want to clarify it now. Anyone with any questions? How did you get the shipping date? The shipping date is a part of the table, so
Yes, that is how we got the shipping date. The shipping date was part of the information that we had to type into sheet one, which was the question one. Shipping date was included in that information.
but you typed the date incorrectly. Some of the dates are incorrect. I think that's what he's trying to say.
Oh well, sir, in an attempt we made earlier in the exercise to fix an error, we were changing the date how it was. I think it's the same date, it's just the format is different.
For some of them, you should have typed back the same date. Whenever you're doing an exercise, type back exactly what you see in the exercise. Don't make any changes there. Because what actually happens is that the exercise can have some errors inside of it. They strategically put in errors. And what can happen is that through those errors now, you could learn as to why that error existed, what caused it to cause something to not work.
Sir, but in the last exercise, exercise 5, they had said if the ranked function produces an error, then check the format of the dates entered. That's why we changed the format.
Okay, but it wasn't basically for all of them. It was only for one. Later on, when we reach that part, we're gonna see to if somebody left that used the original date. You can see what we're talking about.
Okay, sir.
Um, yeah, but fix the date. Try to do over back the exercise with the original date. There's a reason why they have those dates. So that was a good point that was brought up. Any other questions? I was looking for. Yeah, Yes, we already know the date numbers are wrong. They're gonna fix that. Alright. Here are my questions now, since nobody wants to ask any other questions. Um, so we understand how to do the merge. So if you click on donations collected and you click back on merge and center, now everyone should know that if you want to merge together, you would simply highlight the cells that you want to merge. So that's what you see being done right now. We highlighted cells A1 and B1. Now, if you look next to merge and center, there's an arrow pointing downwards. So we have some additional merge options there. We have merge and center, we have merge across, we have merge cells, and we have unmerge. So say for instance, when you merge, you actually don't want to center the data. That would be the third option there, merge cells. And when you use that, notice it merged the information and it remained on the left hand side of the cell. The two cells are merged together now, but it does not center the information. And if you want to take off the merge, well, you can either click on the merge and center, or you can click back on the arrow and you click on the unmerge option at the bottom there. Either one can work. So we have some additional options when it comes to merging. Now, the next point is, so to rename a sheet, we would double click on it. Does anyone know any other option to rename a sheet? Is there another way to rename the sheet? Anyone? Nobody? Are you guys hearing me?
Yes,
Sir.
Alright, well, seems you guys don't know. So if you right click on the sheet, if you right click on the sheet name, you're gonna see it gives you quite a few options there. So notice you have insert, you have delete. Anyone ever tried right clicking on the sheet? Or this is the first time you know you can right click on it?
this is the first thing, sir.
Right. So when you right click on it, you get a bunch of options there. You get insert, so you can actually insert a sheet there. You get delete. If you want to delete a sheet, you can delete it from there. You can rename the sheet also from here. So you know there are some persons who cannot double click. So if double clicking is not one of your strong suits, then you can actually click on it and use the rename option here. If you want to copy the sheet, if you want to move the sheet, you have those options there. If you want to protect it, if you want to hide it, there's some additional options there. Okay. So that's the other way of renaming the sheets. Now, the fourth point was to bold the headings. So we know that we simply highlight the information and we use the bold option. Anyone remembers what is the shortcut for bold? Or does anyone know?
Sir, you right click.
The shortcut keys. It's supposed to be a
Control B. So Control B.
Control B, that is correct. So Control and B gives you the shortcut for both. So if he highlights those headings, and he uses Control and B, it's gonna unbold. And if he uses Control and B again, it's gonna bold the headings. But Alright, if no other questions on this exercise, I hope everyone understands or was following on the points that we looked at in this exercise. I hope everything is clear. Any questions on it? Anything you didn't follow through on? Alright, we're moving on to thank you, Darren and Chikia. A round of applause to group number one. Thank you. So, exercise two, Roshana and Jasmine.
Good morning, everyone. We will be presenting exercise 2 from questions 1 to 17. The instruction says to use the main sheet to continue this exercise. Question 1. In cell A10, type total quantity of donations.
Further down in the exercise, we had to insert rows, which eventually shifted most of the rows downward. So that's why it looks like.
Is it my internet or are you guys hearing clearly or is it just me?
So instead, total quantity donations.
Danny, plus, can you guys hear or is it just me?
Sir,
Hearing you, sir.
Hearing you, sir.
Were you hearing the presenters
Anybody?
properly?
A little bit.
Alright, Jasmine, just start for us because I wasn't hearing from number one.
so I said further down in the questions, the rows had to shift downwards. That's why it looks like this. That's why total quantity of donations is in row A12 instead of
Yes, yes,
A10.
we understand. Yes, yes. Let's go ahead.
Okay. So here I type in total quantity of donations.
So wait, so where's your partner?
Question 2. Widen column A to fit the title in cell A10.
I widen column A by doing by double clicking column A, and then it will give me the option to reshape this cell.
In cell B10, type equal sum B4 to B8 and press enter.
So the quantity of donations. Okay. So I type in equal sum open bracket B4 colon B12 B8, and then close bracket and press enter.
In a row at row 6, insert a row at row 6 and enter data for another donation. 5,000 tins of baby formula were donated, but only 3,000 were shipped via air on the 6th of September 2019.
I inserted the information given into row 6, which is baby formula. I inserted
So how do you insert that row?
the received amount. I'll just right click. No, I right click. I'm going to insert this.
Okay, good. Good.
In cell A12, type total quantity of items shipped.
Total quantity. I typed in A13. Total quantity is items.
In cell B12, type equals sum, open bracket, D4 to D9, close bracket, and press enter.
Yeah, if you notice your
So in
donations and your total item shipped, I think they're using the same range. That's why they have the same value. Notice that's using that D range. But if you check total quantity of donations in the formula, press escape. But if you notice it's using the same range and you're supposed to be using B. Alright, you're gonna fix those later. Continue.
In cell A13, type smallest quantity.
in cell A14, I double click and type in smallest quantity.
In cell B13, type equal min, open bracket, B4 to B9, close bracket, and press enter. Um, in cell A14, type largest quantity.
Double click and type in largest quantity in A14.
In cell B14, type equal max, open bracket, B4 to B9, close bracket, and press enter. In cell A15, type types of items donated. In cell B15, type equal count A, open bracket, A4 to A9, close bracket, and press enter. In cell A16, type number of items shipped by air.
I'm not hearing you guys explaining any of these functions. All you're doing is just reading.
In A17, I typed in number of items shipped by air.
In cell B16, type equal count if, open bracket, E4 to E9, comma, air in quotation marks, close bracket, and press enter.
I typed in equal average, open bracket, before
We're at count 8. In cell B17.
so I typed in equal conflict, open bracket, E4, 10, comma, double, quotation mark, air,
So what is all of
quotation
that?
marks, then
What is all of that that you typed in there? What is it doing?
it's counting the number, it's collecting the air items, the number of items shipped by air. It's listing them, giving the number of them.
Any one of you can answer.
It's counting the number of cells that have air in them
Good.
from
And where is it
EA
putting
to
the air?
E10. It's putting it in cell B17.
No, where is it looking for air?
Oh, from the range E4 to E10.
But that's simple. That's how you explain a function, how it works. Okay.
In cell A, in cell A17, type average quantities shipped. In cell B17, type equal average D4 to D9 and press enter.
I typed in equal average D4 D9, which is counting from rows D4, from rows 4 to 10 in the D column.
And finally, use the name box to name cell F1 as QTY.
I highlighted cell F1 and went to the name box to edit it, and I typed in QT.
Okay. Any questions for group number two? The question was mainly about the functions. The function sum, the function min, max, count A, count if, average, and questions on those functions. So, give me a second. So when you're explaining a function, you need to understand how it works. So for example, when I asked you about the count if function, understanding how it looks for that specific criteria, as Naisha mentioned, it looks for that specific criteria. It was looking for air, and it was looking for it inside of that range. Same for the other functions. You need to not only know how to create it, but understand how it works. Open the average function. There's the last one. If you were to describe the average function, how would you describe it? If you were to explain it to someone, what would you say?
I'd say the average function calculates the average in the given range.
Right, so that's simple. It has a range, and the function looks at that range and calculates the average. It's the same for the other functions because they're simple functions. The sum function, it looks at the range and it adds everything up. The min function, it looks at that range and it gives you the minimum value. The max function looks at that range and it gives you the maximum value. The count A, it looks at that range and counts any value in the cells. So you have to understand, and if you explain it that way in your mind, it can help you to understand how the functions work. Now, in addition to that, I noticed Jasmine was having some difficulty when it comes to um, clicking in her cells. Because if you notice, she corrupted quite a few of our formulas. So, Jasmine, click back on your spreadsheet. Good. So, go back into your average function. Now, we would have went through this already in class, and this was under the topic, how do you complete a formula? Or how do you complete a function? And one of the things we would have learned is that you press enter, you can press an arrow key and so on, or you can click somewhere. But I would have also explained that when you're creating a function, when you're creating a formula, sometimes when you click somewhere, it actually doesn't complete the formula. It actually adds a cell to the formula. And that's what was happening in some cases to you. So at any point in the future, for all of you, whenever you open a formula, whenever you open a function, and you click somewhere and you notice it's making a change to it, press the escape key on your keyboard. Please remember that. So open back your average function, Jasmine. So notice she's inside the function. If she presses the escape key, she's going to come out to the function and she's not going to make any unnecessary changes there. So this is for all of you. Ensure you remember to do that so that you do not corrupt any of your function or formula that you would have already created. Alright, anyone with any questions before group 2 ends? Questions going once, questions going twice. Alright, thank you group 2. Round of applause to group 2. Monique, didn't hear anything.
Oh gosh.
Very good. So next up we have Shermany and Emmanuel Leach. Hopefully we get to finish all the exercise today.
Sir, can we start?
Yes, go ahead.
Good morning, sir, and good morning, class. This is Group 3. My name is Shermany Rambos, and my partner is Emmanuel Leach. And we are going to be answering questions 18 to 25 in exercise 1. The first question, number 18, is in cell F4, type equal if, open bracket, B4 more than QTY, comma, QTY dash B4, comma, open quotation mark, close quotation mark, close bracket.
Look at where you're typing, Emmanuel. Take your time.
Um,
Undo, because you deleted your headings and you already had the function, but I don't know why you recreated it again.
dash before um, comma.
You created the wrong function. This is why I told you guys to just use what you already have, not to create it during class.
Um, um, Sorry for that one. If the answer, I don't know if I'm explaining it correct, but the if the function should determine the choice or the value when you type in that function in the cell. If the if function is determined the choice or the value of the
I didn't
function
hear that
that
clearly.
is
You were
given,
breaking up.
the if value it the if function it determines determine the value of the when you type in the function that is
Alright, let me
given.
fix the
Never
function.
mind, he write the wrong
Let me
function.
fix the function first. Emmanuel, why don't you open the assignment that you already completed?
Spreadsheet.
Yes, go ahead. Emmanuel, are you guys ready?
Emmanuel is cell F4.
Sharmini, didn't you guys complete the assignment?
Yes, yes, sir.
So where is that file?
So I don't know if Emmanuel still have it or he probably used the original one that we completed and redo it. I guess that's what he did.
Yes, sir. I just realized when I have my laptop, but since it's use the side bracket, for some reason when I keep trying to do that one, it always shows it doesn't have the curve one, and I'm trying to do the curve one, then the curve, then go back, and for some reason it always shows the this kind of one, the one with the double straight ones. It doesn't show the one that curves to the left on the on the laptop. It doesn't have the one that curves on the left, and then the one that curves on the right. And my laptop is the only device that I have in the house that has Excel.
So your keyboard doesn't have less than and more than sign?
Sir, you don't got whole shift
Yes, I have less
key
than
at
and
the
more
key.
than is the final signs.
The final quotation marks?
Yes,
It doesn't
the
have.
left and the right. Hey, just keep it going. It doesn't have the one that goes to the left and the one that turns to the left and one that turns to the right.
You're talking about the quotation marks.
Yes, sir.
It's only one you need to use. There is only one type it has, and you basically use the same one. Either way, Emmanuel. Well, we're almost out of time. So what you're gonna do? Prepare yourself for next week. Um, do over back your exercise, this part here, and you're gonna present back next week. Let's just go on to the other group. So prepare yourself for next week.
Okay, sir.
Exercise three, our final group because we're almost out of time. Um, that is group number four.
Okay, good morning. Everyone, can you guys hear me?
Um,
Hello?
Shalon, Shalon, I don't think you're group number four.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yep.
You are.
Oh. Sorry, exercise 4 we're doing. You're looking at now?
I have a million
I
stabet.
think it's we're doing exercise three.
Isn't a
Yeah.
million stabet
Oh, sorry.
group number four?
Yes,
Sorry.
yes,
Well,
yes, sir. Yes.
Shalon, I'm asking Shalon's name. Group number four, you guys can set up. I'm asking Shalon's name though. Shalon. Where's Shalon's name? Shalon, you're group number five. You're the next group. Yes, your exercise.
Oh, is that group number 5? Oh, my partner. Okay, sorry. We have us down for group number 4.
Um,
Sorry.
yeah, your group number five. Your partner is Monique, and your exercise number four. More than likely, you're gonna present next week if we don't have time. All right. So exercise three. You guys can go ahead.
Good morning, class and sir. Your group number 4 will be doing exercise 3. So, number 1 is type the following data in a new sheet of the donation spreadsheet, and the sheet is expenses.
Okay, so what we did to change the name of the sheet, you double click and it allows you to change the name of the sheet. And we typed in expenses in all caps and clicked enter, and that allowed us to change the name of the sheet to expenses.
And then the next thing we did was in cell E4, we typed in equals C4 asterisk D4.
And when we did this, it gave us the quantity of both the value or total of both cost and quantity in cell C4 and D4, which is $17,850, which is the total cost for land
for fuel and gal. I don't know if it's supposed to be gas, but that is what was on the table.
Use the autofill feature to drag the formula from cell E4 to cells E5 to E7.
Okay, for the autofill feature, on the right hand of the cell, when you put the mouse, it will show a plus, I guess. And in order to autofill, you have to drag that down, and it allows you to autofill the data into the other cells. And when you do that and click enter, well, in my case, the data is already there, but when you click enter, it allows you to autofill the correct data, the accurate, in most cases, data into the cells below.
Use the name box to name cell F2 as disk.
Okay, so what we did for that was to click on cell F2, and on my left hand of the computer, there is the name box, and I clicked on it, and it allowed me to enter the name disk. Then I clicked enter, and it allowed me to name that particular cell disk, and it will remain as this until further changes are done to it.
In cell F4, enter a formula to calculate a discount of 15% on each service. Type equals E4 asterisk disk.
Okay, when we type E4 asterisk this, it multiplies cell F2 and cell E4, which give us the total value of $2,142 for the discount.
Use the autofill feature to drag the formula from cell F4 to cells F5 to F7.
Okay, so as we previously did, on the right hand cell of the cell, on the right hand side of the cell, when you place the arrow there, it shows the plus, it allows you to drag and autofill the data into the rest of the cells. And my data is already there, but when you do that and you click enter, it allows you to autofill the rest of the data into the cells below.
Format the cells in the cost, total cost, and discount columns for currency with 2 decimal places.
Okay, so in order to format this range, we used the increase decimal places option above and clicked it in order to increase it by 2 decimal places. So we click that, it increased, and it added 2 decimal zeros behind the value.
Update cell F2 by changing 15% to 12%.
For this, we double clicked on the cell, and it was originally 15%, but then we changed it to 12% and clicked enter, and it changed the data from 15% to 12% and will remain so until it is changed in the future.
Name the range A4 to C7 as service.
Okay, if you're paying attention from before, in order to name the range, we selected the range first, and we on my left hand side of the computer, there's a name box, and in order to name the range, enter whichever name is, well, a meaningful name, and in this case, the services, and we entered service, clicked enter, and it named the range service. Range is A4 to C7 service.
Save the spreadsheet again.
Okay, so in my case, I wasn't allowed to save the spreadsheet. It was automatically saved to my drive. But in this case, it will have most likely an option on the left hand side of your computer where you can save the spreadsheet to the computer itself. Thank you. This is the end of our presentation. I hope you learned something from it.
All right, don't stop screen share. Anyone with any questions? Any questions? All right, no questions. All right, let me go through it one point at a time. So you have to type in the data. You have to rename the sheet. We should know how to rename the sheet by now. We typed in the formula, we autofill. So remember, whatever cell you click on, notice the cell she has highlighted right now. If you notice to the bottom right, there's a small square. So whatever cell you click on to the bottom right, you're going to always see that small square. And that small square is the autofill fill handle, we call it. So here's a question. What basically does autofill do? What's its basic functionality? Anyone can answer. What is it basically doing? Think about it logically. What is it doing? What does it look like it's doing?
So it's just automatically entering or filling the data, sir.
More simpler words. If you were to explain it to your friend, what's it simply doing?
It automatically copy and paste data
Copy
together.
answer.
Copying. That's the word. I didn't hear what the vet said clearly, but it was copy. So autofill is basically copying. Copies what is inside of a cell. So remember that. So that's why we use autofill. Now in cell, I think that's gonna be where did we create the formula? In F4, go to F4. Here, why did we use disk and not F2?
So because that is the name of the cell, when we renamed it, it stayed as it is, and it was logical to use the name of the cell to complete the formula.
Good, both of those are correct. But if you delete this and you type in F2, notice it still works. F2 is still the name and it still works. But when you autofill it, notice what happens, you get error there. Why are we getting error now? Not before. If you look at the last cell, that might give you an idea. We learned about this already. Look at the formula in the last cell.
It did not accurately place the correct formula in the cell.
Good. Why didn't you do it? Anyone?
Sir would have
come down in a sequence of numbers. When you entered it up at the top under F4, where you put F2, the next would have come down F3, the next would have come down S4, the next one would have come down F5.
So it changes automatically, right? So what is that called?
Sorry, relative addressing.
Relative addressing. That's something very important you guys need to remember because you're going to be using autofill a lot. So you need to understand the concept of relative addressing. Whenever you type in a cell name, like for example E7, F5, and so on, and you copy that cell to somewhere else, and it changes, it's supposed to change. It will naturally change. That is called relative addressing because you want it to change so that you can basically copy your formula to another location and it's going to work. But the reason why we had this was because sometimes we don't want the cell to change. And what do we call it when we don't want the cell to change?
Sir, absolute addressing.
Absolute addressing. So there's two types of addressing. Relative addressing when the cells change, you want it to change, but there's some cases where you do not want it to change. For example, this case here, you don't want that F2 to change. So we name the cell, we named it this because if we copy this, it will not change. It's going to be absolute. So there's some cases where you want it to change, that's called relative addressing, and there's some cases where you want it to remain the same all the time. That is called absolute addressing. Naming the range, as you saw there, naming the cell is one method of absolute addressing. Anyone remembers what is the other method? No one? Alright, go back to the first cell. The one at the top. Press escape, go back to the one at the top. Which one? 1 for the 2. Open the one at the top. Good. F2 there. The second method of absolute addressing is using dollar signs. Anyone remembers that? So you put a dollar sign before the number. You put a dollar sign before the number or before the row, and you put a dollar sign before the letter or before the column. Look here, you're typing. So a dollar sign before the column and a dollar sign before the row. Good, enter. So that there is the second method of absolute addressing. And when you autofill that now, notice we have our correct calculations there. So we have two methods of absolute addressing that you guys need to remember. Now the last thing before we conclude is that for point number 8, they were required to format as currency. They only added the 2 decimal place, but they didn't format it to currency. So I'm not seeing, just highlight the discount range to me. We're not seeing the option at the top. Here, click on format. So good, number, and right on the number. That's where you're gonna find your format. So notice you have currency there. And that's how you format as currency. But this is using Google Slides. But on your if you're using Google Excel, then it's gonna be under the home tab. You're gonna find it in that formatting section. Now the last thing I want to talk about before we end is when it comes to saving. Some of you, when you go to save, you go to save as. There's a difference between saving and save as. Actually, we're gonna look at that next week. The difference between save and save as. Any questions before we conclude?
No, sir.
So Emmanuel, get yourself ready for next week. And we're gonna have group number 5, Monique and Shalon. Group number 6, Karishma and Gabriella. Group number 7, Shayon and Raphael. So if no questions on anything we looked at today, I hope you guys learned something from the exercises. Anyone learned anything? No one?
Yes, sir.
Hopefully you guys learned something. So if no questions, we're gonna end here for today. Enjoy the rest of the day.
You too, sir.